Welcome back into the Irish NFL show as the Irish people bask in the hottest day of the summer year so far. We're also basking in excitement for all NFL fans across the country. Having been to the press conference this morning with the Pittsburgh Steelers announcing their international marketing rights agreement to both the Republic and Northern Ireland, the country as a whole, there was also a glimmer of light that we will see an NFL game to be played in Croke Park, Dublin, in the coming years. And we're delighted to have Scott Pioli on to have an initial reaction to this news. Scott Pioli, former GM, the NFL name in the NFL League, former executive in the league, former GM, assistant GM, always very good to the show and is always very keen to see the game grow globally. Scott, fantastic to have you here.
It's great to be back. Great to be. It's been a little bit of a while, but it's good to be back. I'm glad we could put this together quickly on such a big day, especially.
It is a big day. We were fortunate to be at the press conference this morning. Dan Rooney, son of Art Rooney, was in attendance. Brett Gosper, who you know very well, obviously having dealt with him in terms of the international player pathway. Henry Hodgson from NFL UK, and former Steelers quarterback Cordell Stewart, the only quarterback to play for the Steelers in Ireland, albeit it was a preseason game back in 1997. So yes, a number of key people in attendance, and as we touched on offline, a commitment potentially to play a regular season game in Ireland. It probably doesn't come as a surprise, bearing in mind where the league has gone over the past couple of years. We've the 3 games in the UK, 2 in Germany, but Scott, it's really a really encouraging period for fans globally within the NFL.
Yeah, it really is, because the NFL is really excited about expanding globally for so many reasons. We found over the years that everyone loves this game. There's some sports, sure, that they love more, but the game of football is really, really taking off. And in a place in Ireland, I didn't realize it was that long ago. It seems like there was a game there more recently, and I know there's been college games, but as far as the NFL, but this is, and as you know, the Rooney family has a very, very special relationship with Ireland, and this is, of all teams, them announcing, we just went from having 19 teams operating in 10 different countries. It's now, since this weekend's announcement at the league meetings I was at, 21 teams in 4 countries, a total of 40 different new international markets. And we're supposed to be there, right? As a league, we should be there. And there's no doubt that the Steelers, the Rooney family, they are supposed to be there. This is going to be great. I'm sure that the country is going to embrace the Pittsburgh Steelers for sure.
The Steelers have always had a significant fan base across the country. You touched on the college game. The college game is a sellout here in August. It's Notre Dame against Navy, the opening weekend of the college season. And within the media this week, they've kind of acknowledged it's going to be the greatest influx of Americans to Dublin for one particular weekend. 39,000 expected to travel over for the game.
That's amazing. And I'll tell you, so again, I love, not only did I work in the NFL for over 30 years, I worked in college, and I just love the game of football, and I've studied the history forever. And I actually, the game that you all are getting, with Notre Dame and Navy is quite a historical game. I remember seeing a game. I'll have to go look it up to see how many times they've played, but this is a true, and I'm quote unquote, I'm doing a little air quotes, I know it's a podcast, but an American classic. It really is. And for that to be there is really going to be special. I went to a game, gosh, I'm trying to remember the year, but it was in the early 1990s, and it was a home game for Navy. So they were playing at the old Memorial Stadium in downtown Baltimore. And it was, and Notre Dame was there. It was the Notre Dame team that won the national championship that year. So actually, it was earlier than that. It was 1988 is what I believe it was, because I was working at Syracuse and I was doing an advanced scout. And I just remember there's this pageantry that comes along. I mean, Notre Dame is Notre Dame. It's so unique. It's so wonderful. And then there's the Naval Academy, which is just an incredibly special place. And you get, the midshipmen in their uniforms. So you all are in for a special surprise when that game, don't be so excited about all the Americans that have come across by the game. Get your countrymen out there and countrywomen out there to see the game. It's going to be a spectacle and a heck of a football game, I'm sure.
Yeah, we'll be very fortunate. We'll be there in a media capacity. The game has been confirmed for a 7:30 kickoff local time, which will be 2:30 Eastern time. back in the States. But a 7:30 game for Irish people means an early afternoon start in.
I was going to say, do you guys call it tailgating? Because they'll be our tailgating. Yeah, it's an early start, so they'll.
Our tailgating tends to consume just being in the bar and staying in the bar until it's time to leave the bar and go to the stadium, as opposed to being outside the stadium for a number of hours. But I've done tailgating both in the NFL experience and college games. I'm well used to it, so it's always a very enjoyable experience. I spoke to Brett Gosper today and Henry Hudson, and I asked the question around the fact that you touched on there how many teams have signed into the program, and for the teams that haven't signed in yet, I suppose what was a great sense from the conversation was no team is opposed to doing it. Every team understands the beneficial reasons to do it, and everybody has their own kind of business model. And essentially what they want to get out of is see what the other teams are doing from how they'd like to run it, and take learnings and come to the party at some stage over the coming years.
Absolutely. And, in talking to the owners and the presidents, and they said it perfectly. No one is against it. But it takes quite an infrastructure for an NFL team. Again, when you think of the idea that they're putting all of their resources, not just financial resources, but their human resources to make things happen. When you're a team and you're going to have an event internationally, yes, the league office carries it in the league's infrastructure, but there's a lot of work that has to be done by the individual clubs. And if you're going to be I'll say married to a country in an internationally, there's a great deal of infrastructure that has to be in place. And then that's also an enormous financial investment in terms of people, planning. There's so much that has to be done. So the teams that aren't in, I'm sure, as you say, their business model has to be tweaked and made different from what it is to participate and compete in the United States. Because, again, it's not just a matter of saying, oh, we're going to go play. Like the Steelers aren't just saying, okay, we're going to go play a game over in Ireland. Well, they've got to generate a fan base. There's so many different pieces that they are going to be working on, in terms of making sure that they have sponsors over there, or over by you, I should say, over there with you, setting up fan clubs, creating alliance with local sports teams, doing almost anything and everything that they do in the United States. It takes a tremendous amount of work and resources, financially and human resources as well.
Dan Rooney, during his press conference today, kind of touched on that and how much of a huge interest it is to kind of grow within the community and, build up the fan base, acknowledge young people that are only starting to learn about American football, encourage them to get involved in the game. And that brings me to the international player pathway, because Brett Gosper, within his few moments in which we took with him to speak about it, said he sees it as a pyramid. It's as much about growing the game. It's about growing the game with a sense of giving people the opportunity to get involved, grow into the game, become a player, understand the game, and then ultimately maybe get an opportunity within the international player program, which you're very keen on.
Yeah, because I've been working with the International Player Pathway Program since several years. It's been a number of years, even through COVID. And it's a remarkable thing, because I think one of the most important things to any fans, they want to see players that they can identify with. And yes, they want to see the team, but if they can find players that they can identify with that come from their country or come from, their area, there's always, we're that way back here. When I see a guy who's from the local area where I grew up, there's this other additional interest. So Brett and Peter O'Reilly at the league office, and Will Bryce and James Cook working very hard, working very close with them. And I love doing it because it's also evolving. One of the things that we've identified, and I remember having this conversation with Peter, is what we've been doing in trying to find players. We've been finding players that are in their 20s, mid-20s, and trying to train them, yet they've missed some of these formative years because they're coming from either rugby or another sport, and they've played a little bit of football. But because the game's growing, it's being played at such a younger level, so many different places. And there's, the UK Academy has high school age players playing. And I think the biggest difference we see is last year there were 319 international players playing in the NCAA, which is the college football in the United States. And what we're seeing, what that tells us, is there's this much younger group of players that are playing the game, that are enjoying the game, that are developing, knowing how to play the game. Now, as we start identifying some of those players and can maybe develop them better, every country is going to have a lot more prospects, and which will make the game better and grow it better as well.
And Scott, as you know, every player has their own story in terms of how they make it to the NFL. In fact, last week we had a Irish player, Irish heritage, moved to the States, went through the college program, and he's just come out of the XFL and he's signed for the Green Bay Packers. Dan Whelan, an Irish punter. Potentially the first Irish player to play in the NFL for 37 years would be another monumental moment, I guess, for the Irish people. And just my final question for you is around the Jags, in the sense that now the Jags have committed to playing 2 games back-to-back in London, a road game, and then obviously, the home game first, and it's going to be a road game. Is this going to become another piece of the jigsaw for the NFL to see how this kind of evolves and then get to a stage where potentially teams are playing a number of games in the UK or even Germany in the long term?
Yeah, I think we've seen that. Yeah, because we've 5 games, right? We've made a quick jump to 5 games already. The Jaguars are a team, again, I don't know what their long range plan is, so I don't want to speak for them, but they clearly have an interest in this. I think one of the biggest pieces that the league is still trying to figure out is, obviously we've started to get our hands around the logistic component in terms of traveling and hotels and making sure that we have an infrastructure when we land where the team can train for most of the week. I think what it ultimately is going to come down to is making sure that we have years of data understanding player safety when it comes to travel, because it's not necessarily the distance that we're traveling, right? It's really, I guess it's tougher for the teams in the West Coast of the United States to get to European countries. However, there's this other component of the time zones that just change the sleep patterns and rest, as we have learned over time, and hydration and all the things, and soft tissue injuries, to make sure that player safety is at the forefront. And I think a lot of what we're doing now is we're gathering data. We're building a fan base. It can't happen overnight, because then there's too many mistakes that are made. But you're right, and the Jaguars have had a keen interest in that. So it'll be really interesting to see how we all move forward. But what's clear is momentum is growing, it's gaining, and what's beautiful about it is, again, I'm a little bit older, so I remember the earlier leagues where we had NFL Europe, and before that, it was World League of American Football. I remember those leagues. I was working as a pro scout. And I think what the league's doing a much better job of is, instead of imposing this league and all of these teams and all these resources on other countries, we're letting you fall in love with the game first, and then maybe coming to the other countries, and there's this generation that has fallen in love with the game. We've got flag football, so players can be engaged at any and every age. Boys, girls, men, women, everyone can play it. So I think we're going a little bit more, a slower pace and a more thoughtful pace, so everyone can embrace the game as well.
I think everybody has a storyline of how they fell in love with the NFL. Mine was, I was fortunate to go on vacation with the family to the States. My mother had family over there, and I fell in love with the game at a very early age. Scott Pioli, NFL Network, former GM within the league, executive of the year. I really appreciate your time, as always, coming on the Irish NFL Show.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate the call this morning. Invite me on. It's great to be with you. Well, this morning for me, I should say.
Late this evening for us. Thanks, Scott.
Take care.
Good morning. Welcome back into Croke Park, here with Dan Mooney from the Steelers. Dan, a fantastic morning here at Croke Park.
It was a really special occasion. The support we saw here today was significant, and just getting the chance to announce this big occasion was special for us.
How important is it that this event in particular was held in Croke Park? Bearing in mind, 1997, we see Cordell Stewart here today. We're talking about those great moments within that game, albeit it was a pre-season game, and the importance of potentially seeing an NFL game come to Dublin and Croke Park potentially be awarded that game.
It made too much sense for us to make this announcement here, as you said, because of the 1997 game. We were the first NFL team to play a game in Ireland in this stadium, so we wanted to come back here.
The Steelers have always been founded on kind of long-term sustained success. 3 head coaches since 1969, a GM which had Super Bowl success in Kevin Colbert, the long-term longevity of him being in charge. Whilst this is a kind of a 5-year agreement in a sense, are you looking more bigger picture long-term that we see beyond the 5 years?
Yeah, this is long-term for us. The NFL has the 5-year guideline there, but this is a long-term play for us. We don't plan to go anywhere anytime soon.
And within the organisation, I know you're here today, but back home? What's the sense of, do you recognise the importance of this particular day, both from an NFL standpoint, the fans across the country, and the Steelers organisation?
Yeah, we're very excited back home. My dad wishes he could have been here. He had other meetings, but he's watching with a close eye on what's being announced, and everyone's excited.
Dan, we really appreciate your time this morning. Welcome back into Croke Park, and again on a significant day for all Irish NFL fans with the Steelers announcement. Delighted to have Brett Gosper here this morning. Brett, a man who's well known in Ireland because of the CEO rugby role in which you had it. How rewarding is it to be back in Dublin today, on this particular day?
Fantastic to be back, and it's a special day, an announcement by the Steelers with a special relationship with Ireland, which they've had for a long time, but they're kind of turning that into an engagement over time for their fans here in this market. So it's a really special day and a beautiful day too. Lovely sunny day.
Yeah, I know you joked about the weather during the press conference, but for people who live here, we're very much aware these days don't happen.
Doesn't happen as much
often
as we'd like. Yeah.
When you were on the Irish NFL show a couple of years back, you spoke about the pyramids with this particular project in terms of it's not just about growing the marketing rights, it's about developing the game in terms of the mindset, people understanding the game, recognising the game, and potentially developing players. And we've seen the international NFL program be so successful, predominantly with people in the UK and various different other countries. Are we in a situation there where this will also be really something of importance to people within Ireland who want to play the game?
No, definitely. I think that pyramid, at the base of that pyramid, was flag football. We know that when players touch that ball, they become fans for life, but it also opens up pathways for players, men and women. We know that we're bidding to be at the Olympics in 2028 as well. Whether that happens or not, we will still continue our commitment with flag football and so on. So that international player pathway that may begin in flag or may begin elsewhere is very important to us. We want to bring local and create local heroes in the NFL from those markets, because we know that there's a spike in interest and a greater engagement from those markets when one of theirs actually makes it to the NFL. So we've got Academy in the UK. We're in talks about possibly in the future doing one in the Southern Hemisphere as well. And we're reaping good benefits into the college scholarship program and then on to the NFL hopefully soon.
We spoke to Henry earlier about the fact that there's still a number of teams that haven't signed into the program. He saw it as a kind of a wait and see approach from certain teams. Certain teams have various different business models that they would look at, and there'll be certain teams that are kind of doing things in which they would look at from the landscape of the program. This is essentially the second wave. You see like a third wave and four teams kind of recognising the importance of this and coming on board?
Yeah, I think and no one's saying I want to leave. They've committed for a longer period of time, obviously. But no, I think the direction of travel is for more. 22 teams of the 32 is a lot. Yeah. And I think the others aren't saying we won't. They're saying not now, not yet. But I think they will come on board eventually as well. So, some teams are a little bit more cautious than others, but the direction of travel is strong. And
we spoke today about a 5-year term, but realistically for the Steelers, bear in mind the nature of how they do their business, the longevity of success, the fact they don't do changes very often. This seems to be something that they really are committed to beyond the 5 years, and this is something that could potentially grow for year on year beyond.
I think so. I think this is hopefully, there's a momentum in this program now where it's here to stay and it's here to get bigger and it's here to engage fans more and give fans more opportunity of engaging with the club and with the NFL.
We've seen the sustained success of the college game here in Ireland. We touched on the fact that there's going to be a unique amount of people over in August for the game, and we've seen college games here previously, before the kind of sustained, I suppose, security around Aviva and the games being played there. Like, the $1 million question for everybody today is, when is NFL going to happen here? And I don't think necessarily that needs to be answered today, but there's very much what was taken from today.
We can't answer that.
But what was taken from today was, there certainly seems like a commitment and a desire and a hunger for everybody involved to have a game here one day.
Yeah, look, I think the fact that the Steelers are here in the way that they're here as a global market program club, that possibility now is a possibility, whereas before I don't think it would have been. So if you've got clubs that are looking in their long-term plans at potentially putting a game on, then it's more of a chance to happen. So let's see what they plan. Let's see what happens.
A very busy day for you and your team, so we really appreciate you taking time out for the Irish NFL show.
Great pleasure to be with you.
Back in Croke Park, thanks for your time today, Brett.
Thank you.
Welcome back into Croke Park, a significant day for all NFL fans across Ireland. Delighted to have Henry Hodgson, General Manager of NFL UK, here with me. Henry, significant day for all Irish fans.
It really is. It's a big day, and I think it's incredible. The commitment that the Steelers are making to this market and to the NFL and to how they want to grow with the NFL fans in this market. I think it's a very special moment.
When the program started in 2021 and we had 18 teams signed into it, did you foresee Ireland within the program at that stage? I know certain teams were very keen on particular countries. Did you see it evolving where Ireland would become a major player in this
I
program?
did, and I'll tell you why. I think, partly I'd had some insight having worked with the Steelers during the lead up to it, and Ireland was on their minds back then. But also, and it was said today over and over again, because of that authentic connection that the Steelers, and by the way, a number of other families have with Ireland, I think it was always inevitable. I think it happened at the right time and with the right team to come in here and do it for the first time. But I definitely, it was no doubt in my mind that Ireland, with the NFL fan base that there already is, and with the connections to the NFL that there are, was going to be one of those markets.
This week we've essentially seen the second wave, because it's not just about the Steelers today. You've got the Jaguars, we've seen the Saints and the Falcons, Germany and France this week. In terms of where the NFL see this program, are we ahead of the curve where we thought we'd be 2 years ago in terms of the teams signing up? And when do you see a scenario potentially where all 32 teams will be involved in this?
Yeah, I think what's really interesting about the first year of the program is how different teams have approached it in different ways. Probably not surprising. The 32 teams are very different entities, and I think it's exciting to see some. And there's no right way or wrong way, but there are some that have gone in and said, okay, we're going to be about grassroots and growing through participation, for example. Some who've gone and said, right, we're looking for media partnerships and we're going to do it that way. Some that have said that we're looking for commercial partnerships. And a few teams are beginning to say, okay, year 2, we're going to evolve in different directions. I think the program is evolving. I think we're probably about exactly where we thought we'd be 2 years in. Getting to 32 is interesting because I think the other ones are looking to see, probably the reason they haven't dived in so far is either because they're very focused on their actual home market in the US, or because they're looking for really tangible results that they want to be able to measure and say, okay, we know we can replicate this. And it really depends what area of focus it is. If it's on the revenue side, I think we've been very open with all 32 clubs that have inquired about this. It's a slow burn. It's going to take some time. You've got to come in. You've got to be like the Steelers and have that authentic connection in order to be able to kind of to build the commercial side of your business. But the starting point is building the fan base.
And from a playing standpoint, we heard the conversations today about 1997. The stadium has changed so much since then. Cordell Stewart seems a bit overawed by the fact he remembers the stadium as it was then compared to how it is now.
He was telling me last night only one side of the stadium was here.
Yeah. They were in redevelopment in that
exactly.
period. I haven't been here and seen it. You can recognise why Irish fans truly believe an NFL game is worthy of being in this stadium.
Yeah, it's a fantastic venue. I mean, I think we've proved in multiple markets selling out NFL games internationally is not terribly difficult. We would get there if we came here and there was an NFL game here. I feel very confident that Croke Park would be full of very excited, happy fans.
And personally, from your own personal standpoint, having moved from the States back to the UK, taking on this crucial role within the NFL UK over the past year, how rewarding is to be at days like this for you personally?
It's great. I mean, and also it's good to see the fruits of people's ambition and hard work. I've worked with the Steelers on this program, probably going back to we met with Dan Rooney in September of last year, I think, and that's when we really sort of started focusing on this. So it's been a long time in the making, and it's exciting to see it. And it's exciting because it's not the end of a journey; it's the start of something very, very exciting for Ireland. And so while today's fantastic, I look forward to see those milestones that will be taken over the next few years for the Steelers to grow and be present in the market.
We recognise it's a busy day for you and for your team, so we really appreciate you taking time out to join us on the NFL show here in Croke Park, and what is truly a significant day for all NFL fans across the country. Welcome back into the Irish NFL show in Croke Park. Delighted to be joined by Cordell Stewart, the former quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers. How does it feel to be back in Dublin on a significant day?
It's beautiful. From what you guys say, it doesn't look this beautiful all the time. The skies are pretty blue. I remember last time I came in '97. That was my first time starting as a full-time quarterback for the Steelers. And so to have an opportunity to do it here in this country, considering all the work that the Rooney family has done dating back to the 1800s, and more specific, what the late Dan Rooney's done and started in 1976 with the Ireland Fund, which taps into 32 counties throughout this country. It's pretty phenomenal. And then we had a chance to bring home the Waterford Crystal, which we know the Waterford Crystal Trophy is actually made here in this country, which is where it all starts.
So on the Irish NFL show, we interviewed Coach Cower a number of years ago,
Yeah.
and that was the first time that we got hold of that story in which he spoke about the night before that game, evening meal, and he was tipped on the shoulder and made aware he needs to come home with that trophy. And the game plan was changed, and the offensive coordinator was saying, "Are you sure you really want to go in with this game plan? Because this is more of a season type game plan. He said, we need to win that trophy for the Roonies."
Yeah,
Do you recall that conversation?
Well, you understood it in conversation indirectly when it came to the speech that we needed to have coming to the game. While we knew it was a preseason game, it was one that we needed to get started off on a good foot. And what did that mean? We went 7-11 in the first quarter for 131 yards and up 10-0 in the first quarter. And then after that, I came out. So we kind of did our part as the first crew, first team, and then everything else happened after that. We ended up winning the game. So it was about getting that trophy, one of the most beautiful trophies I would say we have back on the shelves back in Pittsburgh, outside of the Vince Lombardi Trophy, which is a Super Bowl trophy. But great significance when it comes to that trophy and what it meant to us in that game and how significant that was for that family, for the Rooney family.
In terms of regular season games, obviously since 2007 we've had the games in the UK. Now we've also London, Germany, and obviously the games that go with Mexico. When you take a step back, bear in mind, you look at your career and how focused the game predominantly was in the States. Are you taken back by the love and desire of this game across globally, not just Ireland, the UK, across Europe?
Well, it's around the world, truthfully, because in '96 we played in the Japan Bowl against the San Diego Chargers, and outside of playing here in '97, we ended up playing in Mexico City against the Indianapolis Colts, which was Peyton Manning. So we've done it a few times, but we know it's more relevant now throughout the National Football League in the sense of doing it during the regular season as opposed to the preseason. We see that, Frankfurt, where they're having games, over in London where they're having games, and it's been really good, I think, for the National Football League. But it would be even better to have one here with the Steelers here in Ireland, considering the family ties that are here, and it has the venue now, because if you look at the stadium now, the east side was the only side we had when I was here. So all of this has been built up since, along with the Hill 16 that you have in the back on the north side of the stadium. It's been implemented too as well. So it's 80,000+ seats, including some standings here, to the point where it can facilitate an American football game in the regular season.
I was bringing back fond memories of that particular game. When you stepped into this stadium today, and you touched on it there, how different it looks, and obviously there was a lot of development taking place at the time in which the game was played. Are you taken back by such a great venue that we have here in Dublin?
Yeah, you are. You kind of are proud a little bit because you were the beginning of something that could potentially spark some really great stuff. And to see this stadium evolve and the fan base evolve over time. I was just talking to someone a minute ago saying how since we played that game in '97, how people really became involved with the National Football League brand, because there's so many other sports here, soccer and all the other things that you have here. Football wasn't one of them. Being that you do have a lot of kickers and punters, if you will, here, that would be a great opportunity, I think, for those guys with scouts that can come with the prospective teams from America, come here and play a game and possibly see those guys to give them a chance to play American football. So they kick the balls they kick so far. Why wouldn't they have an opportunity or a chance, rather, to have a chance to come over and do it? So it's remarkable what's taking place since '97 here in this country.
An opportunity for, as you touched on, players in Ireland who have a love for the NFL and desire to get involved and play NFL fully. We saw last week a former XFL player, Dan Whelan, originally from Ireland, has signed to the Green Bay Packers as a punter. I mean, there
you go.
Potentially first Irish player.
But that's where it starts.
Yeah.
Right? Everything has a beginning stage. He goes out and succeeds extremely well. They're going to look for more. This is probably maybe the stomping grounds to find a kicker. Why not? Right? So it's fitting, to say the least, that you find athletes that know how to do what they do very well have chances. And if they're positioned well enough, they'll get the notoriety they need and the acknowledgement that allow them to have a chance. And that's all you want.
As a former Steelers quarterback, you probably have an interesting take on Kenny Pickett? Obviously, he didn't start last season. Initially, he came in halfway through the season. This will be his first full season as Steelers quarterback. Your expectations for him this season? Very impressed with how he developed throughout the course of the small part of the season which he did.
Well, the thing is first let's talk about his health with the concussions that he's had. It may be cleared, but still we have to be mindful of that. But with that being said, I thought he came in and played fairly well, but it was the musical chairs of he or Mitch Trubisky, and sometimes that can be tough, when the guy you bring in to actually try to lead the helm as a veteran, he doesn't do well. So now you put the rookie kid in, and all of a sudden that thing goes crazy, and he gets